The world of the Japanese games that never left the country of the rising sun, in my opinion, is no less interesting for gamers all over the globe than the Russian obscurities we usually speak on this channel about. So as I've promised in the episode on the Iru PS1 game a year ago, I want to continue releasing videos on some of them from time to time here on Russian Video Game Comrade Show. Especially I want to do this with the games I see no English review videos about on YouTube. And one of such games is a Tri-Ace developed 3DS exclusive dungeon crawler game, Labyrinth no Kanata. At the first glance, it can look like just another obscure Japanese, not a worthwhile dungeon crawler game. There are hundreds of these across all the consoles, and usually every one of them is the spitting image of another. But if you look closer at the Labyrinth no Kanata, which is by the way Beyond the Labyrinth in English, you can realize this is a real hidden gem every Japanese games fan should try to play. And today I'm gonna tell you why I really liked it and why every one of you should give it a chance.
Hello YouTube, this is Rigi Unlocked on the Russian Video Game Comrade Show, and I hope you're ready for some Japanese RPGs today.
The main visual association you'll get if you take a closer look at Beyond the Labyrinth gameplay is the similarity to classic PC RPGs like Might and Magic, Wizardry, and Eye of the Beholder series. There will be a lack of the medieval setting though, but I like this surreal Japanese style much more, to be honest, not to mention this pretty lady instead of pumped up armored warriors. Looking ahead, I will say that the game turned out to be not quite a full-fledged RPG like those listed above, but rather a dungeon crawler. But as I said earlier, this is no ordinary dungeon crawler, but really a standing out one. There are a lot of Japanese games that stay region-locked exclusives no matter how good or bad they are. For the guys who make decisions, this is just business. And they don't care if the fans in the West, for instance, want to play Mother 3 or not. This is only about how well it will approximately sell. And if such mastodons like Mother 3 could stay Japan exclusive, what are the chances some other less-known game won't? Visual novels, RPGs, dungeon crawlers, you name it. The ones that eventually does leave Japan and got an English translation are usually produced in very small quantities. And if we talk about Nintendo 3DS games, I don't know how it is in America, but here in Europe the prices for cartridges with, for example, well-known and popular Shin Megami Tensei series on the secondary market are simply astronomical. Thank you at least that on PS5, Xbox Series and Nintendo Switch, it is now possible to buy something like this digitally. Yes, I personally always prefer physical media, but sometimes digital is still better than nothing. But those you can only get in Japanese can be played either with the knowledge of Japanese or trying to click through blindly. And if you can play some fighting games or platformers without understanding practically nothing written on the screen, playing RPGs or dating sims is a complete disaster. Fortunately, as in the anime or foreign movies community, there are also video games enthusiasts who are making fan translations.
And Beyond the Labyrinth also got one.
The only problem regarding such translations is that to run them you need a modified console, because you will have to burn the image of the disc or cartridge yourself. Although, by the way, I don't understand why platform holders can't give enthusiasts the opportunity to share their translations through PSN or Nintendo eShop like Steam does. It seems to me this would significantly increase their sales. Just make a note that the translation is not official, but you can try it if you want to. That's it. Everyone is happy. And this will also be a strong move against piracy, as I, for example, wouldn't mod my console or buy a flash cartridge if I had an official opportunity to play fan translations. But I don't. So, after realizing the fact that this wonderful box can only be a decoration for your shelf, unless, of course, you know Japanese and have a 3DS from the Japanese region, because the Japanese cartridge will not run on a European or American console. Oh, that wonderful region protection! I am so glad that today it is a thing of the past. And after a little search for fan-translated ROM on the internet, we can finally try to play Beyond the Labyrinth in English ourselves. There are 10 different worlds in the game, a simple but quite entertaining story, and a very unusual combat system. Let's focus on it first. Did everyone play rock, paper, scissors game as a kid? Then you will quickly understand the rules here too. More precisely, you will understand how the combat system works. But in order to use it accurately, you will have to spend some more time. Red is stone. It deals double damage to green, scissors. It also takes double damage from blue, paper. Identical elements cause damage to each other with a multiplier of 1. The combat is turn-based, with the ability to adjust the attack power depending on the number of moves spent, if you have sufficient leveling.
Well, yes, it sounds a bit complicated, but when you'll get started, you'll immediately understand it.
The attack power of each of the 4 characters can be leveled up to 10. Depending on the level, he can attack with a multiplier of 10, 20, 30 and so on, up to 100. For each 10 points of damage, you will receive 10 standby points. Let's say you hit with a multiplier of 30. This means that your next move will be available only after all the units that have less than 30 standby points make their one. In addition to that, each of your attacks have to be focused on the enemies with the opposite element to deal maximum damage. And one more thing to spice the battles up. If, for example, you attacked an enemy of the paper element with your character of the scissors element, causing more damage to him due to the rule scissors cut paper, the amount of damage dealt to the paper will be released. It will replenish the health of the first character of the paper element who will act next. And this can be both your character or the enemy's one. And considering that there are no healing spells here, this is practically the only way to heal your character.
Once again, sounds complicated, but you'll get used to it fast. And then you'll just have to master it.
The game certainly doesn't change the course of things familiar to JRPG players. And at the save point, all your wounded characters will be cured and the dead will be resurrected. But save points are rare here. They occur only once per a world, and in fact, just allow you to heal after the battle with the boss of the previous world and cheat a little on the first floor of the next one. All the other time you have to deal with the battle system healing. Well, technically, there are 2 more ways to heal in the game. Besides the save point, you can use sparsely scattered disposable blue fountains, which I really don't recommend blindly grabbing, as they are also rare and more like a last resort if you're about to have a huge battle and couldn't heal enough in a previous one. Or you'll also have some really rare items. You'll get around 30 of these through the entire game, and these ones not only heal but also resurrect, so you better keep them for resurrecting the falling warriors rather than use them as a healing potion. Unusual combat mechanics coupled with a non-traditional way of healing and an item system turn each fight literally into something like a game of chess. This is a game where you need to be really careful and think several steps ahead. By the way, I played the game on normal difficulty, and it was quite challenging sometimes. And I have no idea how hard it is if you'll play one of the 5 variations of the hard difficulty. Well, after all, it is a Japanese game, I figure. There are also other usable items in the game. For example, there is a very useful one that can change the order of your character's turn. This will be most helpful for defending the lady at the first part of the game.
Yeah, the lady. I think it's time to talk about the game's story now.
3 of your friends and you were playing an online 8-bit game. Yes, online 8-bit game, I know. Suddenly your pixels turned into something modern and realistic, and a handsome lady appeared on the other side of the screen. Without any explanations or even introducing herself, she draws your team into her salvation from the deep, from an underground labyrinth she doesn't even remember how she ended up in. And one would think that this is some kind of joke, but the lady does not look like AI. She carries on a conversation with you without getting stuck like NPCs in games. She can clearly see through your screen, because she constantly makes comments about the unusual world in which you and your friends are. The most fun moment here, by the way, is one with an in-game chat between the characters which the lady cannot read, where an intense discussion regarding her takes place. And basically here you are, trying to save someone from somewhere. Just several hours into the game, the story fades into the background a little, and the majority of it is about the gameplay itself. But, as I've already said above, it is so unusual and requires serious brain work, so you won't notice any lack of the story at all. Only the pleasure when another fact in it will reveal itself. The only thing that upset me a little is that I still expected that the feature with the change from 8-bit graphics to full-fledged modern one would be used a little more. Maybe some switches from one to another, or maybe even adding some 16 or 32-bit ones too. But no. You have the 8-bit style at the beginning and on the game over screen, all the other time it will be the one you saw during this review. And the lady will also fight the monsters with you. It will be frustrating at first because in the beginning you'll mostly have to defend her and she will thoughtless throw herself into the battle. But just several levels later, you'll get a power-up that will allow her to build up a really powerful strike, dealing over 10k of damage. And this will make her a really powerful party member. You complete 4 worlds out of 10, and you already know perfectly well how the combat mechanics work. You plan your gambits and maybe even start to get a little tired because it seems that the combat system is starting to feel a little boring. And then bang, a lady from another world receives a new power that completely changes the combat system. No, the general principle remains the same, but the ability to remove or return a character of some element to the attack chain at a certain moment allows you to plan battles even more carefully. The way the lady obtains her power-up clearly hints that after a few more worlds, she will get another one, and then one more. This is the time you begin to rub your hands with enthusiasm, waiting for the thing that will happen next, and how you will use something even more powerful than some damage multiplier. Damage multiplier is the second power-up. Using it, you can choose whether a successful attack by an opponent will add damage points to the lady's next attack or multiply them. I won't go into details here not to overload you with the game's mechanics here. You just have to know that the second power-up also helps to slightly change the course of battles.
And knowing that, the third power-up looks like you've been fucked.
Because compared to real useful power-ups they gave you before, this one looks like a bad joke. Who needs some fighting abilities when you can have an ability to change the lady's clothes instead? The characters will even joke about the useless transformation magic themselves. But again, it's a Japanese game, so I think developers just couldn't do without something like this in it. And the fourth power-up is even more useless than the third one.
Although, no, probably just as useless.
You'll need an AR card for it, and I've already forgotten I got these with the console in the first place. Never used one before. Did you? In Beyond the Labyrinth, it helps the lady to visit your real world. Good for immersion and no use at all for completing the game. Why didn't they think of something really useful here? For instance, they could give you an opportunity to control ladies' actions in the game more, because it's really frustrating you can't choose what enemy she will attack. Seems like she is following some algorithm, and sometimes this algorithm not only doesn't help, but even harms your battles. If she has enough accumulated damage to finish off an enemy, she does so. If not, she hits the one who can inflict maximum damage without wasting attack points. Sometimes this leads to frustrating situations. Let's say you carefully approach a single monster from behind standing a little away from the others. You want to finish this one first, not alerting the others. What does the lady do? Yep, she attacks those in the distance, dragging them to a battle, and you have to fight the whole pack at once instead of finishing one after another. Should I say how annoying this is? There are plenty more interesting aspects of the battle in addition to those mentioned above. Enemies switching elements with their attack, choosing either to use a character with a lot of health to protect a lady from damage or to hide a half-dead character behind her instead, and so on. I'm sure RPG fans will be more than pleased with all of it. Besides the battles, the game is exactly what it is called, a labyrinth. Walking up and down, opening shortcuts, and searching nooks and crannies. In some places, it even begins to resemble the labyrinths in the classic Wolfenstein 3D. Only even more complicated, because these ones include elevator rides between floors and constant battles with monsters that come back to life after a while. You can't clean the level of monsters and calmly search it here, and if not the first, then the second battle may well lead to the knockout of one or even several of your characters, and you will have to return to the save point, look for healing points, or use precious, very limited items.
And this is really fun.
Beyond the Labyrinth is a fairly old game. It came out in January 2012, less than a year after the launch of Nintendo 3DS. And I really don't understand why Konami hasn't released this great game outside of Japan after so many years. It is interesting. Gameplay varied and, to be honest, much better than some games that were released in English for the 3DS. Yes, it sometimes can be a little monotonous, but it is really an interesting game to play thanks to its battle system. Good varied combat is exactly what many modern JRPGs lack. They either stick to the classic turn-based style unchanged from 1986 Dragon Quest I, or, and that's even worse in my opinion, change it to mindless real-time, click X a lot of times to win, the modern ones get. So, if you like smart and entertaining RPG combat, you definitely have to check out this one. The only problem here is the fact you will either have to get yourself a Japanese 3DS and play it in Japanese, skipping the entire story, which is far from the most important but still interesting element here, or struggle soft modding your 3DS. But if you find one or these options acceptable, I absolutely recommend that you try out what is, in my opinion, one of the best JRPGs for Nintendo 3DS. 40 hours of pleasure are guaranteed.
Thank you for watching today's episode. I really hope you liked it. Please press thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Have a nice day, good luck!